Hi, and welcome to Rosiclune Studios, the home of TellThemYourStory.org podcast and the short stories featured in TruthinSmallBites.com. If we've not had the opportunity to meet, my name is Dwight L. Carter Sr. I'm a husband, a father, a grandfather, a writer, an author, director, and founder of Rosiclune Studios. My other interests range from health and fitness to music, travel, and dancing with my beautiful and charming wife. But before I was a writer, speaker, or podcast host, I spent most of my life in industries that demanded toughness, discipline, accountability, and resilience. 26 years as an equipment sales rep on drilling rigs and production platforms, as well as petrochemical refineries, taught me how to work and think under pressure, how to keep working when conditions are hostile, and how to read what's just beneath the surface. 2 decades as a commercial property adjuster put me in the living rooms at farmhouses, office buildings, as well as parking lots of people on their worst day of their lives. People staring at what was lost, trying to imagine what could be rebuilt. I've sat with destruction and I've watched ordinary people choose to start again. Those careers placed me face to face with pressure, uncertainty, loss, destruction, the recovery, and the extraordinary strength of ordinary people. That's not a resume that led me away from my purpose in life. Quite frankly, that's a resume that built it. And somewhere along that journey, I discovered something important, that stories matter. Before we begin today, I want to ask you something. Have you ever had a moment in your life where everything changed in an instant? A moment where time slowed down and suddenly you realized just how fragile life really is. Maybe it was a phone call. Maybe it was a diagnosis. Maybe it was a betrayal, a financial collapse, a divorce, an addiction, a failure no one else knew about. Or maybe it was simply waking up one morning realizing the life you've built no longer felt connected to who you truly are. Most people carry those moments quietly, hidden beneath routines, responsibilities, careers, and sometimes smiles. But those moments shape us. They either break us apart or become the beginning of transformation. Welcome to TellThemYourStory.org. Not fictional stories, real stories. Stories born from hardship, stories shaped by failure, stories refined through faith, endurance, and second chances. Because when people share honestly where they've been, they give others hope for where they can go. This is why this podcast exists. My wife and business partner, Velma Ivelisse, has spent more than 21 years serving people through leadership and administration. And any of you who have met her understand why she's earned the title of Director of First Impressions. She brings wisdom, compassion, grace, and strength into every room she enters. Together, we have 3 children, 4 grandsons, and 2 rescue dogs named Rosie and Clooney. This family, this small circle of people and animals we love deeply, reminds us every day what truly matters. Now, you may wonder, why would someone with my background start a storytelling podcast? The answer is simple. Life happened. Over the years, I've experienced moments that changed me forever. At 7 years old, I nearly lost my life while simply riding my bicycle on the street. At 16, I lost control of a car and barely survived the accident. At 27, while just sitting in my car at a Houston shopping mall parking lot, writing a check, 2 armed men walked up to the car, placed a gun to my head in the open window just outside the driver's seat, kidnapped me, drove me to an unfamiliar area, pushed me from the vehicle, and just simply drove away laughing as they stole my car. I can still remember standing there afterward in complete shock. Not really because I was afraid, but because I realized how quickly life can change. One ordinary moment can suddenly become a defining moment. At 37 years old, while working on a 20,000-foot land-based drilling rig, a 10,000-pound blowout preventer suspended above my head suddenly slipped in the hydraulic system, and for a split second, death felt certain. Then somehow, miraculously, the system repressurized and held only inches above my head. Years later, during what should have been a normal phone call and conversation, my speech suddenly became confused and disoriented. Doctors discovered later a brain tumor the size of a golf ball. That diagnosis led to more than 9.5 hours of surgery, and yet I was back at work in just 6 weeks. Moments like these change the way we see life. They force you to ask difficult questions. What really matters? Why are we here? What gives life meaning? What do we do when fear, pain, and uncertainty, or failure, arrive uninvited? Those experiences did not make me fearless. They made me aware that life is fragile, aware that time is precious, aware that people desperately need encouragement, and aware that faith becomes very real when life becomes very hard. You see, throughout my life, I've succeeded greatly at times, and at other times, quite frankly, I've failed miserably. I've experienced seasons of abundance and seasons of struggle. I've praised God with gratitude in moments of blessing and questioned everything during moments of pain. But through it all, one truth continued to emerge. We're not meant to walk through life alone, filled with doubt, fear, and worry. That realization became the foundation for this podcast. TellThemYourStory.org exists to share real stories that encourage people to move forward with clarity, courage, faith, and purpose. Stories that remind us we are all connected. Stories that help people realize they can survive difficult seasons and still become stronger, wiser, and more compassionate. For many years, writing became my personal outlet. During long work trips and difficult seasons in corporate life, I began writing about the people, the experiences, the failures, and the lessons that shaped me. At first, I wrote simply to understand my own life, but over time, I realized those lessons were not meant just for me. They were meant to be shared. I learned that words carry power, that words can wound, words can heal, and words can even redirect a life. And sometimes, one honest conversation can give someone enough hope to survive another day. That understanding eventually led me to develop a simple acronym that helps guide my daily life. LIFE. I know, sounds simple, right? The L, live like who you are and what you do, makes a difference. I, invest in others daily. F, faith in God, your purpose, and in others. E, elevate your thinking and encourage others as a way of life. Simple principles, but powerful ones in my opinion. Now let me share a simple story and a life lesson that still stays with me after all these years. I call it the right tough. When I was in 6th grade at Bullock Elementary School, I played quarterback on the B team. The A team had the bigger, faster, stronger kids, so the rest of us, like me, played on the B team. Now, personally, I thought I was pretty tough myself, just not as big as some of the other guys. Sometimes during practice, we scrimmaged against those bigger guys on the A team. And every now and then, one of us would get completely run over, knocked flat on the ground, embarrassed, hurting, and then Coach Shear would walk right over, look down on us laying there in the dirt, and say very loudly, tough it out, tough it out. You're okay. Catch your breath. Come on, get back in the game. I never forgot that because life works the same way. Over the years, probably like you, I've been knocked down, humiliated, overwhelmed, exhausted, disappointed, and sometimes deeply wounded by circumstances I never even expected. But somehow, during those moments, someone would appear beside me. A friend, a mentor, my spouse, sometimes a stranger, but more often than not, simply the quiet presence of God. And once again, I would hear those words, tough it out, catch your breath. Come on now, get back in the game. But I've learned something important since those pee-wee football days. Real toughness is not pretending you feel no pain. Real toughness is having faith while you hurt. Real toughness is continuing forward when fear tells you to quit. Real toughness is staying compassionate in a world that often encourages bitterness. And I can't emphasize this part enough. And real toughness grows stronger when it's surrounded by faith, community, and your calling and purpose. That's the kind of toughness this podcast hopes to encourage. Not anger, not pride, not isolation, but resilience, purposeful living. You see, life is full of new beginnings, moments of loss, moments of rebuilding, moments where we must choose whether we will become bitter or become wiser, obstacle or opportunity, fear or faith, hopelessness or purpose. Those choices matter, and often the difference between surviving and thriving begins with perspective. That's why stories are important, because someone else's story may become a roadmap for your or my survival. A reminder that healing is possible, a reminder that failure is not final, a reminder that purpose still exists even after heartbreak. So if you're listening today and life feels heavy, if you're exhausted, I've been there. If you feel uncertain about your future, I've been there. I want you to know something. You matter. And I promise you, your life matters. Your words matter, and your story matters. There is someone somewhere who may desperately need the wisdom born from what you have survived. Before we close today, I want to leave you with this thought. Hope leads to purpose. Purpose leads to direction. And direction leads to commitment. Commitment leads to determination, and determination produces wisdom, understanding, and ultimately, your life story. So wherever you are today, keep moving forward, keep believing, keep learning, and keep encouraging others. And like Coach Shear would say, when life knocks you down, catch your breath, catch your breath. You're okay. Get back in the game. Thank you for joining me for this first episode of tellthemyourstory.org. I truly look forward to our next visit together. And until then, may God bless your life as you pursue Him, direct you as we are renewed and strengthened, as He does a new thing in our lives. The journey to a new life is on foot, led by His Spirit to serve Him and others. And tell them your story, because it matters. And remember, words have power. I'll see you next week.